Let's bring out our first one.
Yeah.
Let's bring out Christopher Galbraith, Amy Antonelli, Spencer Taggart, John Dye, and Dave Blanchard. And we got Steve Zollinger. He's going to moderate for us. Let's give it up for our panelists and for Steve Zollinger, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, everyone. We're glad you're all here. We are very hopeful you've had a great time. And I think this is a real good time to be interactive. And that's what this will all be about, is we have two microphones, one over here on the far left for you or on the far right. And so we want you to come forward and ask any of the panel members questions that would be helpful and beneficial, not necessarily specifically for you, but think maybe in a more broader perspective, and so that they can kind of answer and help other people as well. And so let's do that. Bring any of you have questions. There's got to be questions with what we've felt so far and what we've seen and participated in. So anyone, come up here and have some questions for our panel members so that we can get started. We don't have a lot of time, and so we want to make good use of the time that we have. There's a good brother right there. Step right up and fire away, please.
Way to go.
All right. My name is Kevin Anderson. I'm a biology major, and I'm hoping to go into optometry. And this conference has helped me a lot with realizing, that really is my passion. That is my vision. But my question is.
No pun intended.
Right. Hey, thank you. No pun was intended. Thank you for pointing that out, though. But my question is, so I feel like grad school is the next step after BYU Idaho. But Christopher, your speech kind of inspired me because and made me think about how to break into the actual, be an optometrist, think about the career after grad school. So for all of you, what would you recommend as in like networking? Like, would you recommend more like networking to get into grad school first, or thinking about like other careers in the future? I don't know. Does that make sense? Do you want to? Sorry.
I've got
You want me
something.
to go first, or?
Go ahead, man.
So, just to make sure I understood your question.
Yeah, I'm sorry. It was.
Yeah, so you're asking, where should, what should I be trying to figure out first in this whole series of things that you want to accomplish in your career? Is that correct?
When I want to interview people, like what you were talking about, should I talk to, I guess should I talk to like optometrists, or should I talk to more like people who are in charge of like graduate schools?
Absolutely, all the above. So I would say this. First and foremost, you're trying to say to yourself, I got to get into a good program that's going to set me up for success. So you're going to look and say, who's everybody I need to talk to? I would definitely start with optometrists. They've all been through optometry school. They're all going to start telling you things like, hey, if you know now you want to get in there and you have some time, you need to get this and this and this on your resume. Maybe it needs to be some volunteer work. Maybe it needs to be some shadowing, so that when you put forth your application, they're going to look and say, wow, he's not just saying that he wants this, he's demonstrating it through some of the things that he's doing. So these optometrists will be able to tell you that. Maybe current students are going to say, this is how I got into this program. And then eventually you're going to start networking to find out things like, do I want to own my own practice, or do I want to go join Walmart and do it in one of their big centers, and I don't have all the debt and everything that goes with your own facility? And that's got to be your own personal thing. But I would say right now, where you don't even know where to start with some optometrists, and they're going to start telling you what you don't know. And when you figure out other areas that you don't know, then you'll start finding other individuals that you can talk to and continue to expand your knowledge of the industry, organization, and the individual levels that you will enter.
Awesome, thank you.
Spence, you have any comment on that as well?
Well, I think with any decision, it comes down to ROI. Where are you going to get the best return on the investment for that time? And I think you answered it really, really well. Knowledge is power. So I don't know if that made sense.
Absolutely. Great. Thank you so much. Okay, next question over on this side, please.
Hi, my name is Logan McKee.
Yes, please. In fact, name, where you're from, and major would probably be helpful.
And I'm from England, and my major is business management. So I, too, am looking into graduate school, and I want to go to a prestigious school, just like you did, Chris. So I want to know what I can do specifically for my resume to make me stand out. I mean, just so you know, I'm looking into international internships and sort of like work experience, but what else can I do to help me stand out?
Panel, what do you think?
I know nothing about standing out. But
You do know how to
one
dance.
big element, and all of us have talked about it, and it's authenticity. I think Amy was by far the most authentic person I've ever seen on stage. Give it up, serious. The minute that you start speaking the truth about who you are, and she started out with just intimate truth, you stand out. The world is craving authenticity. And when they see and feel that you're telling your authentic story of truth, you stand out way above anybody else. Be honest.
Anyone else, panel?
I'll throw something out there too. So, experience matters, especially with graduate school. So don't be afraid to go out there and get some internships. Get some experience under your belt. Do some things that make you stand out. You want to be recognizable because of the good things that you've done, and find out what those are. Discuss with people who are at the school right now, understand how they got in, the process, and then do some things. But get as much experience. I would suggest getting real-world experience before you go to graduate school. I think you then can apply theory much better than you can if you just go straight from undergrad to graduate. I would never suggest that, almost rarely suggest that.
Amen.
Can I just add one thing, too? It was interesting. You see a ton of like how-to information. It's like the top 10 things that you can do to really make a powerful resume. But one of the things that I realized when I was at Harvard was that rarely do people have that sort of patented, what everybody else has kind of background story. What schools like Harvard and other pretty elite schools, I think, are looking for are people who are interesting and who have different stories. So if you're actually looking for something in a resume that stands out, I would avoid just looking at how to make a resume. I would think about something that's interesting and different, because that's the thing that people will lock onto in an interview, and they want to know more about that. When I started off my Harvard application by saying there are bugs crawling across my screen as I'm writing this, immediately people are sort of curious about that. And so I think just kind of be authentic inside of you, figure out what's different and unusual, and then own that, because that's what you've been given.
Does anybody else just spontaneously weep every time she opens her mouth? I'm serious.
Somebody get him a bottle of water.
Honestly.
All right, thank you. All right, next question right here.
You sure you don't want to go to them behind me?
Oh, we got a lot of them. Okay, we'll go back there. We should just be using these two front ones. Go ahead back there in this corner then.
Hi, I'm Dan Abbott from Chicago area, Illinois.
Nice.
A couple. I've been super inspired, so thank you for everyone for everything that you said this weekend. And at this point, the most important question I can possibly think of for these next steps that we all have to take in building our brand and becoming experts. You talked about 10,000 hours. Success, it is what we define it, but for most of us, our definition of success is going to require a lot of time investment. So the most important question I have is, what have you learned about balancing your family life and family responsibilities with all the time you have to invest to your professional pursuits?
Great question, especially in light of the church and that kind of
Marry
issue.
an incredible wife.
Marry an incredible wife.
And two, when you're in education focusing on a job, we want to separate our life from our job. And I loved, Amy, that your career is your life, that there isn't a separation. Those who love life are always living. And party every day. They learn how to step into their home and be fully present. They know how to step into their business and be fully present. They don't bring their home into their business. They don't bring their business into their home. But they are always fully present, always maximizing, always creating, always contributing, always being their best. And there's a major reason for it. If we play half speed, my postgraduate degree is a PhD in hard knocks, so I hire the MBA, and I'm very concerned when someone views it from 8 to 5 and wants to go home. Now, I'm not asking them to sacrifice their home. I'm asking them to engage in life. And the primary reason isn't just to bless our business, it's to bless them. Because when we play half speed, we're not spending time with our true self. It takes too much energy to play half speed. You want to be full speed everywhere you go because that way you'll be unlocking your natural gifts and your natural genius. And it's one of the greatest healers of self-esteem to know who you are. Love thy neighbor as thyself. The way you get to know yourself is by taking your foot off the brake and pressing on the gas. So whatever you choose in life, choose to live full speed. It is a party.
Great, thank you. Yes, Chris, go ahead.
I really like your question because it's a question I ask myself regularly. There's a time and a season for all things. And my take is this, and this is just one opinion. But when you're first coming out of school, you need to make an investment. People who go into the medical field make that at medical school. And when you go into business, you make it on day one on the job. And the way I view it is up front, you've got to make an investment in that career. And sometimes, when you look at the bucket, sometimes there's a lot of time that's spent in the career jump-starting it. And as you get going and you build up that experience and you build your own expertise, then it comes time where you need to be very conscientious and know what the Lord expects of you. And you've got to start to make that shift and say, I'm at a place now where I'm contributing, I'm doing what I want to, and maybe I need to strike a better balance now. What I find is that when people network in that screener interview, one of the things I'm looking for is, are we getting somebody who said, my family's so important that I will never be here at 5:01 on a work day. I've got to get home. And initially up front, you got to prove yourself and you need to invest in your career and in yourself. That doesn't mean you neglect your family. It means that later on, you might see it tip the other way, but up front, don't be scared to put in some hard hours. You do it in medical school, you do it in a lot of different fields, and in business, you got to plug into that first career and give it your all. And then hopefully with time, right now, for example, I'm very strict on how much I'll how much I'll travel because I don't want to be away from my kids. And so it's striking that balance. And in a front, I was working 70-hour work weeks, and now I work 40, 50. So it's balance.
So another thing to always consider, keep in mind, is prophets, scriptures have always promised us that if we put our lives in God's hands, He can do so much more with it than we ever could by ourselves. God is always first. And if that is the case, everything else works out.
Great. All right, next question right here, please. Quickly as you can.
I'm Jared Tolman from Meridian, Idaho. My question is, what is the most important attribute you look for in hiring new interns and employees?
Anyone?
Maybe I can talk
Amy.
about that. For anybody that's interested in going into nonprofit work, I get a lot of questions about how they can get into that. And let me tell you one thing, you guys. I get tons of people that are super enthusiastic and really want to do something, and there's a lot of value in that. But I'll tell you, sometimes I just need an accountant. Sometimes I just need somebody who knows how to do branding. Sometimes I just need somebody with real hard skills. So if you're interested in going into any kind of social good where you make a difference in the world, I think that's awesome, and I'm full support of that. I would also say, work hard to develop a skill, because no matter what you decide to do, that skill will be beneficial.
Okay, right here in the corner. Go ahead.
My name is Brian Novicka. I'm from Colorado, a applied mathematics mathematics major. And I really liked the point about having a vision and how that can help direct your life and where to go. A problem for me is I find that I have too many things I'm good at, too many things I want to pursue. I have found not many people have this problem. It's not that I'm good at everything, it's just everything I care about, I find that I'm great at. So I have a hard time
I love this guy.
getting my vision down to something that can express in a single idea. So
I like him.
if there's other people with similar problems with mine, how can you define a vision when everything is possible?
Spence,
So, okay.
you've had this experience. Go ahead.
So, oh yeah, right. I had to search for 10 years to find one thing I was good at. But if you think about it as a spring, okay, I want you to think of a really thick, big, like car spring. It's made out of metal. As it crushes down and gets smaller and smaller and smaller, that is a very painful process. But the minute that it gets to its smallest, most intimate point is the minute that when you let go, it can go and launch the absolute highest. That is why I say you have to get so small to discover what it is you truly are great at, not just good at.
Excellent. Anyone? Dave, please.
Og Manduna wrote 10 scrolls, and the 9th is called I Will Act Now. And he says, my dreams are worthless, my hopes are impossible. You're not going to accomplish anything unless you take action. And he has a little paragraph in there about a firefly. He said it's only has its light when it's in action. I'll be like the firefly, not like the butterfly who preens his wings. I'll be like the firefly, which means you may not get the inspiration, all of it, until you go into action with some of it. So don't wait for the big aha. Jump into action expecting you'll see the next piece and the next piece and the next piece. But go into action. I will act now.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dave. Okay, right here in the front again, please.
My name is Macy Grace Guthrie. I'm a biochemistry major, hoping to go in international obstetricics. And my question, what stood out to me last night is, Amy, you said very quickly that you saw the destiny in the eyes of the children. And David mentioned about looking outside yourself. And my question is, how can we accelerate the destiny of others?
Thank you.
John?
The big thing, I think, is being put into a situation where you can influence people. We saw that with Amy in India. You know, Dave with his business, I'm sure you see the power in other individuals. And as we talk about the power to become, I don't think you can ignite a fire in another person that doesn't exist. You can add accelerant to that, but you can't create that. So through your example, you might be able to help that along, but I really think you have to put yourself in a situation where what you're trying to excel in aligns with other individuals who have a similar vision. And when you do that, I think that's when the magic happens. But you have to put yourself in that situation to be able to have that happen.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Okay,
Thank
let's
you.
see. Back here. Amy, did you have something? Okay, right here in the corner again.
Hi, my name is Emma Davis. I'm a psychology major, hoping to study neuroscience at some point so that I can help children who have been diagnosed with anxiety or depression disorder to not have to be reliant on medication, but to be able to become independent for themselves and to help inspire those around them. And my question for the panel is, how have you incorporated your testimony of the gospel of Jesus Christ into influencing those around you within your immediate circles as well as those outside of those circles?
Maybe I could talk to that. One of the things that I really struggled with when we were first starting to get a ton of volunteers to come to Rising Star in India was not knowing what to do with all of those people. And I felt like we were sort of flooded with really willing volunteers. And so I talked to my dad one time actually on the phone, and he said, "Are you praying in the morning?" And we were very careful at Rising Star not to make it just an LDS organization. We have people that come to volunteer from us from all different religions, and we really respect and admire people from every walk of life. One thing that we did want to always acknowledge was that God was behind the success of what we were doing. And from day one, he was the one that was making all of that happen. And so we decided every morning before the volunteers would go out to start the day with a prayer. And I believe with all of my heart that that is what made the difference. If volunteers had come and they were from a different religion, sometimes we would invite them to pray the way that they felt like they should pray. And sometimes for other people, it was maybe just a poem. But most of the time, it was just an acknowledgement that God was with us, and it was an expression of gratitude to him.
Hey, can I take one as well?
Yes, go ahead. Christopher?
I love that question. I think it's a great question. And what I find is that there's a statistic the church shows that people take on average 7 encounters before they'll ever join the church. That's an average number. And often in the church, we get to thinking that we need to take people's from 6 to 7. We want to be the last one that gets them there to baptism. But that's not what missionary work is. It might be taking someone from a 0 to 1 or a 2 to a 3. And so what I do at work, and I feel very passionate about this, the first thing I do is I make sure everybody knows I'm Mormon. Everybody knows that. I'm very vocal in saying I'm a Mormon, I love my church. And my job, my role is not to convert them all, it's to constantly be sharing the gospel. Little tidbits here and there. And so I look for ways to weave that in. I throw out little sound bites, and when they bite, they ask a question, and now they've opened the door for me to share the gospel. So it's something I pray about regularly, and I have in-depth gospel conversations, at least 2 to 3 every single week. And every time I have to speak at church or something's going on with my kids, I go to all my colleagues and I say, come support me. This is what's taking place at church. I'm not saying come to the Mormon church. I'm not saying come be baptized. Come support me. And I'll usually get 5 or 6 people come to church with me, and that's one of their encounters. And they need lots more before they're ever going to join, or maybe they never join. But our role is to open our mouth, not to necessarily dunk people in water.
Great reply. Thank you. Yeah. Dave, do you have anything you want to add to that real quick?
I just want to add, Chris, what a great comment to always be out there. I've got a good friend, Chad Hymas, who's quadriplegic. An amazing human being who delivers 300 speeches a year, travels 500,000 miles a year by himself. And he says that love, agape love, we talked about yesterday, the pure love of Christ, is not spoken, it's demonstrated. I think the single greatest thing we can do to be missionaries is to be joyful in our lives, to be examples of the blessings that come from faithfulness. That is discernible in a world that's very dark. People are attracted to and want what you have. So demonstrate the gospel as much as you speak it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. We've got time for another question. I'm sorry we're running out of time, but I think we're right back here next. Please.
My question was actually very similar to that one. So I was just kind of thinking, I kind of had this assumption that it would be difficult to, discuss your faith in conjunction with your professional life. Now, this setting, it's very safe. It's a church-themed setting, so it's very easy to do that. I was wondering, is it difficult to find those opportunities, or is it easy?
Spence.
You guys, what we're trying to teach you is that authenticity and truth doesn't change. Your story, you having the gospel in your life, is possibly one of the most key elements of who you are. Do not ever be afraid to be a son or a daughter of God, a person with a testimony. Right on my LinkedIn profile, the most business kind of structured social media network where I tell my story, it talks about my love of Jesus Christ and how every day I try and become more like him. That's in my intro on LinkedIn. Don't ever be afraid. That's what Satan wants you to feel. Talk about an incredible example. Live that way. It's who you are.
We are out of time. We apologize. Let's give a round of applause to Dave. Thank you so much, John, Amy, Spence, and Christopher. Thank you so much for participating in our question and answer. Don't go away. We'll be back with more in just a few moments.